Hello and welcome to RS Agarwal's IAS. In this video of the Daily News Express, let us discuss the important topics appearing in the Hindu newspaper dated 27th November 2020. Let us start. This is the list of topics that we'll be discussing today. First, we'll talk about the aspect of one nation, one election that Prime Minister Modi spoke about. Then we'll discuss about the scenario of Ayurveda or the alternative medicine systems in today's health scenario. Then we'll discuss about the Love Jihad law, some basics about it, and how this is not constitutional according to experts. Then we'll discuss about the Indo-US relations with regards to trade. Then we'll talk about how the vaccine is coming into picture and profit orientation with regards to it. Then we will end the discussion by learning about a piece in the Hindu newspaper which talks about checking online abuse through stricter laws. Is it possible or not? Let us move on to the first topic of the day. The first topic is about one nation, one election, caters to GS paper 2. Now, Prime Minister Modi spoke about this and said this is not a matter of debate, but ironically, this sparked a huge debate about how this aspect or this idea will come into picture in the Indian electoral scenario. Now, what is the meaning of one nation, one election? This means that the election that are conducted in the country, that is the elections to the Lok Sabha and elections to the Legislative Assembly, will be conducted simultaneously. Let me repeat in a very definitive manner that one nation, one election means that Indian election cycle will be structured in such a manner that the elections to the Lok Sabha and elections to the state assemblies will be synchronized. They will be done at one time together. Now, what are the advantages of one nation, one election? There are several advantages. First is the expenses part, right? It will keep the poll expenses lower both for the political party and for the Election Commission of India, right? We saw that in the initial times, let's say in 1953 or so, our election expenditure would come up to 11 crore rupees, only 11 crore rupees. But now, when it comes to 2019, if you talk about the Lok Sabha elections, the total election expenditure went up to 60,000 crore rupees. So of course, money value also increased and the expenditure also increased. Apart from the expenses, you can talk about how this will save the burden or how it will reduce the burden on the administrative setup, namely the Election Commission of India, where it has to develop new policies or new model code of conduct or new things for every time assembly election happens. So as you know, there might be 6 assembly elections in a year, there might be 7, or it depends on various scenarios. So every time a new thing comes up, they will have to develop new kind of ideas, develop new policies, bring in more personnel from various departments to have them on the election duty. So it will be a lot of burden and that will be significantly reduced. It will also solve governance problems. It will solve the governance problems where, at various points, the political parties or the regional political parties have to move away from their actual thing of governance and focus on elections all of a sudden right in the middle of policies or right in the middle of some important thing going on. So one time, one election or one nation, one election happens, they can all focus on at one period for the election matter, other all the time they can devote for working or for the development of their constituencies or for their particular states. Now, all these are the advantages of this particular aspect. Now we have to discuss about the disadvantages of one nation, one election. Now there are various disadvantages or the various challenges we can talk about. It is believed that where at one point we believe the expenses will be reduced, at one point the experts or the analysts are of the belief that it will be a lot of expenditure or it will overdo the expenditure that they incur doing the assembly elections at various times, different times, different elections, or various the constituencies have lesser seats, some more seats, so it's managed. Once it is to be done for the whole country, for the whole India, then the expenses will definitely go up, is what most of the analysts say. So the next challenge that we're talking about here is the term of Lok Sabha and the term of state legislative assemblies have to be bought in sync is the biggest challenge. They have to be bought in sync so that they can come together. Now, if you know, The previous Lok Sabha elections happened in the year 2019. Now the Bihar elections happened in the year 2020. So there's a significant gap of 1 year. Next year there might be, let's say, Haryana election, or I'm just giving you an example. There might be Chhattisgarh election or Madhya Pradesh election. So there might be a gap of 2 years. So bringing them into sync will be a very big issue for that matter. And second issue is about the constitutional amendment. There have to be several constitutional amendments that have to be made for bringing this into sync. Let's say there is Article 83. Article 83 talks about the term of Lok Sabha will be 5 years from the date of its sitting. This will have to be amended. You can talk about Article 85, which empowers the president to dissolve the Lok Sabha. You can talk about this. Then you can talk about Article 172, which states that the term of Legislative Assembly will be 5 years. Now, this will be amended to say that it will be dissolved prematurely because of one nation election. There is Article 174, which talks about the power of the governor to dissolve the legislative assembly. Then you can talk about Article 356, that is President's rule when constitutional machinery fails. So all these amendments have to be made. It's a long, time-consuming procedure, and time-consuming procedure not just for the people of the country, but for the government and for the parliament, because they have another important issue to discuss about, or major issues to discuss about. They would rather not waste their time on amending these articles. And of course, the third important disadvantage can come in conclusion, or in addition to this, that the regional political parties will never agree to this. The regional political parties will never agree. They will have a lot of differences, because of course they wouldn't want their assembly to dissolve in a premature manner, or they would not want to give in to the whims and fancies of the central government, as they call it. And the it is believed that regional parties have put forward that the people will lose focus on regional issues. Right, when the election is being conducted both in the central government and the state government, the people or the voters have a tendency to focus on the central issues and not on the state issues. As a result, state issues will be buried, and as a part of this, the state regional parties, as you know, there are several regional parties, like there is JDS, there is RJD, there is JDU, there is AIMIM, there is LDF. All these regional parties will seem to be buried because of this, and it will be very difficult for them to get convinced to do this particular thing. Another core issue we can talk about which hinders the implementation is India's parliamentary form of government, which is the form of the government that we follow, is accountable to the lower house. Now it is quite possible that the government can fall before completing its term, and the moment government falls, there has to be an election. Now again, that can come into the place of this, and then the whole scenario will be baffled, and the whole scenario will be against the whole idea of a parliamentary government. Of course, there can be many several logistical challenges, like I spoke to you about. Now, in the advantages, we believe that the burden on the administrative machinery will be reduced, but we believe that if the elections are conducted in a synchronized manner, there will be double requirement for EVMs, there will be double requirement for VVPATs, there will be double requirement for manpower, there will be double requirement for polling stations, security personnel, so on and so forth. So it is very difficult, this aspect, but there are several possibilities that it can come into picture, because the government has been promising the same. So we will have to see and work about how this will come into picture. The major and the most vital challenge will be the political consensus. The most important one. Everything else can be covered. Of course, the government wills for it, but everything falls down to the regional parties and the political consensus that is coming into picture. So we should also understand the fact that the regional issues of the state should not be ignored. They play a very significant role for the development of the country, because we are a federal setup. So we will see how this will pan out in the future. But of course, this can be a potential question if this idea is feasible or not. With this, let us move on to the next article of the day. Here we are talking about Ayurveda today. What is happening with Ayurveda today? This caters to GS paper 2 as well as GS paper 3. Now India has a huge heritage with regards to medicine. We have seen several doctors, surgeons are mentioned in our ancient history syllabus as well. And we have seen several mythological examples. Of course, that doesn't entertain us from UPSC point of view, but then ancient history does matter. Now, one important mention in this article is about Shushruta. Shushruta was a very important surgeon in ancient India. He wrote about the thing of surgery and rhinoplasty in Shushruta Samhita. His book Shushruta Samhita, he mentioned about surgery, he mentioned about rhinoplasty. Now, in recent times, why this has come into picture is that the Central Council of Indian Medicine, CCIM, which is a statutory body and an important body to take care or regulate or oversee the alternative systems of medicine in the country, has issued a gazetted notification that the doctors who are Ayurvedic doctors and are postgraduates in Ayurveda can perform surgeries. It has said that they can perform surgeries, but this has led to a whole new debate across the country, and people are not accepting or people are not okay with the fact that doctors who are trained in Ayurveda can perform surgeries. Now, the historical point of view is beautifully presented by the author. He says, before modern medicine, that is the Western medicine, like we call it, or allopathy, at sometimes we refer to it as, before modern medicine came into picture in India, all we had was Ayurveda, or the alternative system or the traditional system of medicine, right? And since modern medicine came into picture, our inclination started to go towards the modern medicine, and Ayurveda did not get as much attention which it was supposed to get. As a result, when it comes to education point of view, also modern medicine had the status of a degree, and it was given a lot of importance from the educational point of view, and Ayurveda kept falling down and down, and it merely reduced to a course. It's not a degree, it's a course it reduced to. Of course, after that, a lot of changes happened and Ayurveda gained back its stature. And we all know the fact that Ayurveda was not recognized and Ayurveda was underrated. The author is of the belief that Ayurveda has significant impacts, Ayurveda has significant role to play. Even then, Ayurveda suffered from something called as an identity crisis in the country in which it hailed from, or which it belonged to. It was away from the MBBS point of view, it was away from this aspect, and after a lot of struggle and after a lot of push from the current ruling dispensation, Ayurveda has come into picture, and several examples have been provided by the author where he says these people who are trained in Ayurveda, the doctors, hold important key positions in today's medical scenario, but no one performs a surgery. They hold important places, they assist doctors, they're part of this emergency trauma center, etc. But no one performs a surgery because there is nothing called as an Ayurvedic surgery that exists. Please understand this fact. There is nothing called as an Ayurvedic surgery that exists, or in Ayurveda you call it the Shalya. There is nothing called as Ayurvedic Shalya, but this simple surgery that any modern medical doctor will perform. So hence, the people believe that Ayurveda does not teach the method of surgery. These Ayurvedic doctors are not allowed to perform a surgery. But now, this has released notification, that is the Central Council for Indian Medicine released a notification that Ayurveda postgraduate doctors can perform a surgery, which simply points out to the fact that these doctors are equally qualified to perform a surgery which any other doctor can perform. Now, this is the whole scenario that we have to understand, that Ayurveda has come from India, but in India it lost its importance, gained back its importance, and now it is coming to the position of surgery. Let us go a little further and understand some more aspects. Now, a lot of people are Ayurvedic doctors, but they suffer from issues that people don't prefer them. The hospitals don't give them the same kind of stature or respect that they deserve. Hence, they go to rural areas to practice or have their own centers where they practice this medical system or medicine system. Is it not effective enough? It is definitely effective and it plays a very important role. But people have to understand the role that Ayurveda plays. Now, it's not just one doctor or two doctor or 10 doctors. There are hundreds of people who are trained in Ayurveda and can perform equally good amount of tasks like any normal doctor can perform. And hence, they constitute a very large medical workforce of the country, whose potential has to be tapped. They are well trained, they are innovative, and they have done a fair good amount of job for themselves, and they have also made their way in several avenues today which was not there, you can say 10 to 20 years ago. Now they have made their place. For them to reach the mainstream, for them to get the proper recognition, this stereotype has to break, this prejudice have to break. They have to be performed, they have to be given better training, they have to be given a better place to work, they need to get a better pay, they need to get better identity, and then they will come into the mainstream. Now, what we understand from this point of view is that in general, the Ayush system of medicine that the current ruling dispensation has pushed forward, which talks about Ayurveda, Unani, Siddha, homeopathy, and yoga, these are the alternative systems of medicine that also have a very, very important role to play when it comes to human life. And these people who are employed in this also an important workforce of the medical personnel. And now, when we are facing what we call as the COVID-19 pandemic, we cannot be completely dependent on the modern medicine system alone and the personnel working for modern medicine or the western medicine. We also have to rely on these people who will take equally good amount of care of those people who are suffering from an ailment as any modern doctor would do, and they would provide decent amount of health care, that is primary health care, to the people. So this is an important article. You can make use of the elements mentioned in this article when you write your answers with regards to the ruling this alternative systems of medicine. You see here a clear reading of Ayurveda surgery move. He says India needs its Ayurveda graduates, including surgeons, to improve their common man's access to decent healthcare. I think we have quite demystified the claims here. With this, let us move on to the next article of the day. Here we are talking about Love Jihad law, which was brought in by the Uttar Pradesh government under the leadership of Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath. This caters to GS paper 2. Not much important from UPSC point of view, but then let us see what are the things we have with regards to religion in our Indian constitution. Now, this article or this editorial is of the opinion that this Love Jihad ordinance is a regressive march. Let me repeat, it's a regressive march towards medievalism. It's a regressive march towards medievalism, and interferes in people's private lives, also in people's beliefs as citizens. So this is a very important note that's been given in this article, that this is a regressive march towards multilateralism and intervenes or interferes in private lives of people and beliefs of citizens. It is also said in this article that it is against, or it is eschewing, it is against the idea of freedom of religion. Also, you can talk about Article 21, that is right to life and personal liberty. Now, this editorial also mentions that we have provided in the constitution right to propagate your religion, but right to propagate the religion does not ever meant or not as does not ever mean right to convert. You cannot convert anyone forcefully. But if the person's personal choice, they have the right to get converted and they can fight for the same because it's their personal choice. Again, this caters to Article 21, right to life and personal liberty. Now, this Love Jihad ordinance has said that it will uh, give the person 1 to 5 year prison term if they are found for coercive conversion. It gives a prison term for 3 to 5 years if there are SCs and STs involved. It gives 3 to 10 years prison term if there is mass conversion involved. Now, here again, right to privacy comes into picture. We have to see who has done it and why they have done it, and if this can be misused or it can be used. Now this is come into picture. The cabinet has cleared the ordinance, but it is not away from judicial scrutiny. Judicial scrutiny will take this into regard and push this forward if it is constitutionally valid or ultra wise to the Indian constitution. So this is some important takeaways from this editorial. With this, let us move on to the next article of the day. Here we are talking about the future of Indo-US trade ties. This caters to GS paper 2 again. Now we know that Joseph Biden is the new face of US for us, as he's the president of the United States of America, succeeding Donald Trump. Now we know he will be the new face for the foreign policy and the trade policy as well. So what are the things that we have in store for India or for the world? First, we can talk about how WTO was not given reverence by Mr. Trump. He said WTO is doing its own advantageous things. It is favoring the underdeveloped countries. Why should they do that and these things? But now we see that under the Biden's regime, WTO will get the right kind of importance that it deserved. Apart from this, when you talk about the Indian scenario, we had lost the GSP status in the Trump regime, and we were on the brink of planning a free trade agreement. But then the air was taken away when the elections came and so many things happened. The COVID-19 pandemic happened, so the FTA was stalled. But this author and the article is of the belief that India is definitely not a priority for USA right now, because they have pending issues with countries like UK, where they are again discussing a free trade agreement with UK. They have the Boeing issue with the European Union, not important from UPSC point of view. And what is important is the trade war that they are having with China. So we have discussed about the relevance of trade war in our previous DNEs and several other videos. So the trade war, these issues are to be solved first, and then only they will come down to India to discuss the foreign policy scenario or trade deals with India. Now in India, if you talk about, you have the FTA that's planned, and FTA can play an important role for India and US trade relations, a very important role, because RCEP scenario and all those things are there. So FTA is very important. There is something called as the TPF, or the Trade Policy Forum, that has to be revived. Of course, in the Trump regime, it was not revived, it was not spoken about, but in the Biden regime, the Trade Policy Forum has to be revived, and all this will lead to better trade relations. Now, if you talk about the trade relations in particular, we will be referring to a few things, a few aspects where we properly need US support. First is digital platforms, or digital trade, you can call it. Second is services, which can be, of course, a part of this, or this can be a part of this. Then you can talk about the intellectual property rights and several aspects related to this. Then you can talk about innovation, harnessing innovation. Of course, you can talk about health. It's the most predominant need right now. Then you can talk about science-based agriculture policy, science-based agriculture policies or platforms. All in all, the situation is definitely bright and beautiful, but not easy. It's not easy, and a good leadership can pull forward this thing and make this scenario a better place for us, and we can solve the issues that are present. We can develop a better scenario through good bilateral negotiations, is what this article tells us. With this, let us move on to the next article of the day. Here we are talking about vaccine and profit. Again, not very important from UPSC point of view, but then there are definitely a few takeaways that you cannot miss from GS3 point of view. Now, if you talk about COVID-19, it has been a good advantage for some, it has been a very bad scenario for some. Those who have taken advantage predominantly are the capitalistic business houses who have banked on the scenario, and they have produced PPE kits, they have produced masks, they have produced ventilators, they have produced sanitizers. So much they have done, and they have gained good business when it comes to the COVID-19 pandemic. Others that were not needed have immensely suffered. The author is of the opinion that banking, or making use of, or taking advantage of a public health crisis is not less than a crime against humanity. But then this is business. This can be done because that's the imminent need, but this cannot be done when it comes to COVID-19 vaccine. The author believes that the COVID-19 vaccine should be treated as a public good. Now, what do you mean by public good? First of all, he believes that these private companies, whoever is producing the COVID-19 vaccine, should not bank on it, should not take the advantage of it, but they should treat it like a public good. Public good means the government should step in to take care of the COVID-19 vaccine. If the government steps in, the government should regulate its development, the government should regulate its distribution, the government should regulate its management, its supply and sale. Everything will be done by the government so that it is not banked upon. Apart from this, what comes into picture is WTO. WTO scenario is very important because WTO should make sure that any of these companies are not banking on COVID-19 vaccine, and the WTO can set the norms according to its IPR norms, which are mentioned in the TRIPS, that is trade related intellectual property rights. Then it can talk about the Doha Ministerial Conference 2001, the Paris Convention. All these aspects it can come into picture, and it can strictly mention that through advance purchasing agreements or any other agreements, the countries cannot hoard the vaccine or black market the vaccine because of profit orientation. Simply because of the human grounds, it cannot do so. It has to forego all these activities on human grounds, and not holding the vaccine for profit or not providing the vaccine for profit should be a long-term goal of all the countries that are producing the vaccine, be it India or any other. So these are the key takeaways from this article. You can use this to talk about how vaccine can be treated as a public good, and if it is a public good, of course it will have a lot of impact. A lot of people are in need of it right now. The world population is indeed in need of it right now, and it should be provided to the people. You can say at subsidized prices or even at free of costs at the will of the government. But public good can be a long-term goal, and we should take into consideration. With this, let us move on to the last article of the day. In this article, we are talking about can stricter laws check online abuse, that is checking online abuse through stricter laws. This caters to GS paper 2 as well as GS paper 3. We are talking about this article in the background of the Kerala government that brought out the section 118A to the Police Act, which said we can arrest or we can take person into custody when there's something derogatory on social media platforms. Now what is this derogatory or whatever the term is? It's very vague and not properly defined. So hence we have to discuss about this and find an answer to this question, that are tougher laws the answer to check online abuse? Now there are various takeaways from this article as well. I have pinned them down one by one for you. So we believe, one of the speakers in this article believes that laws already exist. Laws already exist in the form of IPC sections or in the form of the IT Act or in several other basic legislations. Yet states bring in laws and regulations. So rather than bringing in new laws and regulations, we have to bank on these laws that exist, that already control, the online abuses, child pornography. All these things are already controlled or under regulation. So we have to make use of these articles, and states should refrain from bringing stricter laws, stricter rules, and stricter regulations. Better than this, the state should work on improving the criminal justice system, which should be accessible for women and the vulnerable sections to make complaints and to have awareness about what are the changes that are happening in this scenario. The other speaker in this article is also of the opinion that tougher laws are not a solution. We have to outline the issue first. He believes we have to outline the issue first and bring out the solution to it in a transparent manner using the existing laws and not by bringing stricter laws that are derogatory in nature. Apart from this, what this article says is the role of intermediaries, that is the social media platforms. Now they should be given regulations to control this abusive speeches, abusive content online. They should regulate this particular thing, but again we believe that this has an effect on the freedom of speech. So the whole discussion is about freedom of speech and expression, and the definition of what correctly means derogatory or arbitrary. So these social media platforms or the intermediaries can be asked to regulate the content, but of course it will have an effect on freedom of speech. So that also has to be done in the most subtle and the proper manner. Here there is existence of central laws and there is existence of state laws. But we have to understand that until and unless this kind of a law comes into picture, state laws are not given importance by the people, and we are only worried about the central laws. So we have to take into consideration the state laws and give them primacy, and they have to be understood well in this regard. So these are the important takeaways from this article. We can understand that bringing stricter laws to check online abuse is not a solution. We have to think out of the box. We can do better things. We can do better things in a manner where we are not attacking the freedom of speech and expression of an individual bestowed upon him or entitled to him under the Article 19 of the Indian Constitution. So we have to make sure that people are able to express their thoughts freely and are well within their rights and are not encroaching the rights of others as well. So that's it for today's discussion. I hope you enjoyed today's session. Write to us in the comment section if you have any doubts or discrepancies. Until next time, take care, stay safe, bye bye.